This is Mike Merlin Means of Merlin and Public Media. And tonight on our homegrown show, Small Business Talk, we have that's your cue
Brenda Fury
of
dog training.
Okay, so
I'm new at this.
it's okay. It's okay. Most everyone is. So, Mutt Manners dog training?
Yes.
How long you been out there?
I've been in my current location since 2011. So 11 years.
Wow. Okay, and that's fantastic. And I've been able to be close enough at times to see people coming in and out, and most everybody that I've noticed is like they leave with happy people and happy animals, and that's basically what we're trying to do here, isn't it?
Yes, that's the goal, to make a partnership.
I didn't think about it in that light, but yes, I guess it is.
Yeah, that's how I think of it.
Okay. And apparently it's working for you and your clients and their kids. So
Yes.
That's all it's really got to do is work for everybody. So
Yeah.
You've gone into it a little bit. So animal training, you said, is a partnership. So tell me more about that idea and how this all works.
So I started on this path when I was 19, and I'm not a child anymore. Let's just say that. It's been 30 years. So we'll just leave it at that. But I can remember, we had a small farm for a number of years with just, geese and some cows and chickens and things like that. But I can remember my mom always treating them, even though they were in the backyard and some of them did hit the dinner table, she still treated all of them as they were part of the family, as they were part of they belonged to all of us and we all worked together, kind of thing. So it was just kind of something that I always grew up with. And then when I started seeing the dog training that was done with police work, which is my first introduction to actual dog training, I started thinking, so some of this was, I saw the later stages of it. So when I started talking to one of the guys that did it, he said there's a lot of basic stuff that goes into the beginning. And he said, if that handler and that dog aren't in sync, if they aren't partners on the job, just like two humans in a car are partners working in sync, then the job doesn't get done well. And for me, it was a light bulb moment that said, so we don't need to jerk on a leash and bark orders at them and do commands. So when people call me and say, so you cover all the basic commands, and I say, I cover the things that make dogs safe, and I give humans the tools that help keep them safe. So yes, a dog's going to learn how to sit, and they're going to learn how to lay down. They're going to learn how to stay, and they're going to learn how to come when called. I don't teach it in those basic things that we remember from the 70s and even the 80s before it started kind of turning to a more positive kind of training. So yes, I use treats as incentives, usually to help ingratiate myself to a new dog who doesn't know why it should do anything for me. Why I need to listen to that new human. And if I say, well, I'm going to pay you every time you do this, then they go, okay, for that I will. And then I can start building the trust, and I can start building a bond. And I teach the humans that own these animals to do the same thing that I'm doing in front of them. And so we do 6 weeks worth of this, and some people repeat, and some people are there after they've done some other basic training. So what I do is not in a box where everybody fits. I mold it to what everybody needs that comes to me.
That's the unique concept to me in animal training. Is it's your lessons, for lack of a better word, are tailored to the owner and the pet.
Correct.
And I see how that can be um, well, I don't want to say more rewarding, but like you're going back to that team. If they're not partners, then you don't have anything. Now,
Right.
what happens when a husband and wife, or any couple for that matter, have a dog? Do you have to work with both of them and the pet,
Oftentimes,
or
yeah, I would say it's probably a 50-50 split if I had to just pull out of the air without concrete numbers.
sure?
That I work with the partners, the household versus one person from the household.
Okay.
So if I get both adults from the household or even adults from the household plus older children that are 12 years or older, that is generally where I tend to fall,
Hmm.
and invite to class. If I invite the entire family, but obviously anybody under a certain age is going to be disruptive to the other people in the class, so I do
Yes.
kind of have an age thing, but usually 12 and older, as long as the parents are there. When I have the whole family, the thing of it is that the same way that I don't have the same relationship with my two children as my husband does, I explain that your husband is going to have a different relationship with the dog than your wife does, and your
Hmm.
daughter does, and your son does, because that dog can learn to have individual relationship with each one of those people because they're individual people. Now we keep the basics the same. The general rules of the house remain the same. There's no jumping on the furniture. There's no this, there's no that. And hand signals, which is a key part of what I do, are supposed to be as close to the same as possible, minding some kind of, physical ailments that some people might have.
Right.
So we try to keep that as similar as possible so the dog sees kind of the same gesture from all the people, even though someone might do it in a slightly faster mode or a slower mode, it's still generally the same.
So what? The hand signals are for basic. I don't like to use the word commands. I guess instructions sounds better to me.
Mhm.
Um, but the so what instructions are given by hand signals, or are all verbal instructions reinforced with hand signals?
So if I have a puppy, I'm going to start with hand signals and never use a voice command until they're over 2 years old and we have worked together for 2 years and there's a partnership built up. And then we get lazy in some things we do, and we might say, excuse me, instead of sit, because the dogs kind of learn to listen to a tone versus a word. So, uh,
Oh,
you've seen my little tiny dog that comes with me to work,
oh
um,
yeah.
little Miss Tuffy McChicken. So she's turning 9, and I can say, this way. And she will stop on a dime and look to me to where she should be going instead, or just follow me. So
Uh-huh.
um, it's been 9 years of working with her, but this kind of came closer to it, closer to 2 years of age when they're considered an adult mentally, not all
Okay.
physically, because a lot of
Right.
dogs stay childish.
Especially labs.
Yeah, there's a lot of hunting dogs that tend to stay puppy like for a long time.
Uh-huh.
So, um, but going back to, if I only get one person that comes out of the household, their job is then to go into that house and teach everybody in the house, and then remind them that they are all invited to come to class. But if schedules don't allow, they are supposed to be teaching them what they learned in class. And so then the whole family gets on the same page. Now, this is only as good as the work that the family or the one person puts in. I can give you all the information I want, but if you don't follow through and you're not consistent, the dog's going to learn that very quickly because they read us faster than we can train them.
They are amazingly smart. Heck, even our chickens have kind of sort of trained us. I mean,
Yes. All
animal men. Oh, they're so smart.
Oh, yes. Um, our large turkey on the farm, baby Huey, learned that he did not have to listen to anything we said unless we had something between him and us. Now, we never hit any animal with anything, but for some reason he was terrified of even a wood plank standing between us and him. So if we had a broom or a rake or anything, we could stand and hold that in front of us, and we could walk into him, and we could herd him back into his little pen where he wouldn't hurt the other animals when he broke out. But he just, for whatever reason, that was something, and we captured it. And it was something that we got to learn about him before he figured out we were never going to hit him with that we were, in essence, bamboozling him, but we got it to work. So that's only one case of where humans thought faster than the animal itself. But it doesn't happen with dogs, I'm telling you.
Yeah, they are at this point in our lives, we do not have a dog. We have our chickens. Some of that is because I will be spending, once some of this medical stuff gets together, I will be spending 3 solid months in Phoenix. So I can't get a dog or a cat now and then abandon them for 3 months and then come back basically in a miserable condition post-surgical and expect them to understand. So we're waiting, and we have this thing, especially with cats and dogs, when it's right, it will come to us.
Yeah, I can tell you that I have only technically paid for one animal in my life. And that's basically, I think, because I was in rescue a lot. And if they were there and I was in their life, they just probably didn't go. But only one time did I pay for medical needs of a mother dog because it needed to be done. And later I was told, well, then you can have that puppy because you paid for the mom. And I don't want you to.
Yeah.
So that's really the only way I've ever ended up paying technically for an animal. But yeah.
And just something about a rescue, though. I mean, geez.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all 3 that I have are rescues. The 2 boys came to me at 2 and 4. They came from horrific conditions, took months of rehab. But they're really genuine, lovely dogs now. And whereas they tend to panic out in public, even though they go, and we do take them out, we don't take them out quite as often as Tuffy, because she was a puppy, an infant when I got her, really not even supposed to be away from mom, but an emergency rescue. So she's been out in the public more because of her age. I had to take her with me everywhere, even at my part-time job that I was working for a few months. So she had to come with me. So public is something she's used to. She doesn't know how to, in fact, she hates staying home because she doesn't know how to be home. So that's a plus and minus, I guess. But she definitely throws a tantrum when I leave her at home, even though it's too hot for her to be out there. She's not happy. But yeah. So I really, when I have clients, and I think, I stopped advertising commercially probably about, I would say 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, I can't tell you the thousands I spent on print and radio and television when TV2 was running, and the massive campaigns I've done on Facebook, even paid ads. I generated very few from any of those thousands I spent. I keep my fees very nominal because I have a husband who does make a good living. So I'm able to just kind of cover.
Let me interrupt you for just a second here. I'm sorry to break your flow, but very reasonable fees. Will you share them with us, please?
So for a 6-week basic obedience class where you would come once a week for about 45 minutes, it's $80. I've only priced on that 2 times in 16 years. So, and this last time I raised them, it was only because two ladies that came after the first class, they said, you're not charging enough. And I was only charging 60 at the time. And they both left $100 bill on my table. And they said, that's what you should be charging. And I said, I don't think I can go that high. And so I met in the middle and I went to 80. And that was probably about that time. But word of mouth is really where I get the most customers and where I like to be, because the people who are hearing about the success that somebody had are the people that want to come and see me. So I feel like that's a better clientele to have. It might sound weird to some business people, but I think it works better in this town.
Yeah, there are some things that are just a trifle different here, but that is an extraordinarily reasonable fee, bordering on inexpensive. I mean, that's super. I'm going to take another side trip here. How do people get a hold of you? Because I'm hoping maybe part of this is to get you some clients. And so how do we find you? We've got a new dog and we're just fighting and we don't want to do that. And how do I find you?
So pretty much any internet search will find me either right above PetSmart or right below PetSmart. If you search dog training in Bullhead City. So I had a wonderful web person who has since left this earth, but she did a great job in tag words, keywords, hashtags.
Yeah.
I don't know the science behind all that stuff. So she's made my website pretty close to the top. I'm on Facebook by the same name. My website is the same name.com. My phone number is definitely a California number, but I have been here for 22 years. It's 714-926-8629.
Okay,
I don't
and
answer.
give us the name of your business, because you brushed past that 3 times.
I know. I'm bad. I'm really bad because I don't want to be on the business side, but I haven't found anybody to do that for me. So,
Yeah.
So it's Mutt Manners Dog Training.
Okay, pay attention, people. Check her out. I've known this lady for a couple of years now, and I would not hesitate. In fact, if and when we ever again, then we're going to come down and visit you with our new kid.
Awesome. And I specialize in rescue anxiety issues. So that's something.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a couple of things. And the first of which is coming up here any week now. It's going to be getting hot in Bullhead City.
Yes.
And our whatever you want to call them, pets, children, fur babies, whatever, they cannot deal with this heat. So tell me, give us some guidelines for the heat here and our pets.
So I will first say that my training is indoors and air conditioned or heated. Secondly, if you put your foot on the pavement and you can't hold it there for a full 10 seconds, your dog should not be outside. I understand that there are people who live in apartments and have to walk their dogs daily for potty breaks. So this is what I tell them. Get up first thing early in the morning, make sure that they, get a really good chance to urinate more than once before breakfast, and at least defecation by a few minutes after breakfast, and then do a mid-morning somewhere around 10 a.m. at the latest, closer to 9 once we get into July and August. And then, try to keep them inside if you know of any shaded or grass areas. And sometimes this might involve carrying them to a safe spot or if you need to and you feel like you can do the training for it, booties are good for dogs that need to be walked to a potty location inside an apartment complex. However, I will tell you that it does take some training, and not all dogs take to it. And then booties should not be left on for more than 15 to 20 minutes at the most, because dogs sweat through their paws. And if you block the only source that they have to eliminate and heat from their body, they will start to overheat.
I did not know that. That's very good information.
They only pant to bring in cooler air, which that's not going to be great out in 110. So
No.
they have to be able to sweat through their feet. So booties on a short-term basis are good if you can get your dog to take to them. But again, not every dog is going to. I realize you can't carry an 80-pound Labrador, but let's hope you don't have an 80-pound Labrador in an apartment. Just saying.
Yeah. That's just a bit of a small space to start with for a larger dog.
Pretty much the only large dogs that can handle that would be a Greyhound or a Great Dane.
Oh, Danes are glorious dogs.
Yes, but they can only handle an apartment once they've reached 2 years of age. Before then, they want to run and they want to do all these kinds of crazy things. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
okay, now here goes a sensitive subject with many people, but with you as an expert, I want to talk a bit about breeds. There are breeds of dogs that terrify people.
yes,
Most notably, pit bulls.
correct.
Now, I'm assuming, just knowing you and through this conversation, that there's not a breed you're going to turn down.
No, I will not. I pay extra in insurance to be able to train any dog, any breed, any mix of breed.
So these quote unquote dangerous dogs, it's basically BS.
So to say that one breed is horrible and should never be on the face of the planet is like saying there is a breed of human that should never be on the planet ever again. So to say one race, creed, religion, or color is worse than anybody else is so incorrect and so unacceptable. So I apply the same things in dogs, because I have known Chihuahuas that terrified the hell out of me, and pit bulls who would lick my ankles to death. So I have a very good friend who has 3 pit bulls. 2 of them are my babies. Even though they live with her, they're mine. I tell her that all the time, but she claims mine is hers as well. So I go over there just to be slobbered on by pit bulls. So to a degree, I believe that it is how they are raised. And I would say that somewhere around 90% of dogs are what they are raised with. And there is a small thing. I am recently taking classes to get a certification in understanding dog biology. And what I can tell you is the very first class I took from this one professor he said, there is mental illness in dogs just as there is in people. And there are studies out there that have been done on this, and he has been involved in at least one. And there are dogs, because genetics is a very funny animal in and of itself, that says you cannot predict 100% what's going to come out without spinning it, so to speak. Because, in human babies, we can spin and at least come up with the sex that we want. But in just basic breeding of dogs, whether it's planned and sought out and researched and whatever, there's always going to be that quote unquote pet quality in any breed on the planet in any litter, and there's oftentimes going to be these ones that are malformed, have cleft palates, have nasal deformations, born without faces, born without legs, born with extra legs. There's all kinds of things. The same genetics that causes these outward things can cause cranial deformations, cause brain pressure. Dogs can get brain aneurysms, brain bleeds. All of these same things that happen in humans, they're discovering can happen in dogs. And in the 30 some years I've been doing this, I have only had 5 times where I have had to say to someone, you need a medical scans. And oftentimes I bring in a second trainer, and I will have a request them to do either brain scans or just make the choice to humanely euthanize because of the unpredictability of that specific animal, not the breed. And because I will tell you, everybody that knows me knows I'm a boxer person. I've had 15 years, and I'm currently without one. But one of the last ones I had to do was here in this town, and it was a boxer. And it broke my ever-loving heart. But that dog bit 4 people in 2 days. And I was one of them. So, and the owner was one of them, and the trainer and the assistant trainer that I brought in for a second eval, he bit both of them. Now, when I looked at this animal right away, I was questioning things because we had a tongue that was 3 times too long. We had a head. You know, I've had boxers from puppies and boxers I rescued, and this head was incredibly small. And the face was really long. The bottom jaw was twisted. When that dog stood, what was supposed to be straight, one hip was taller than the other one. Whether it was a brain defect or whether it was just a dog who was in constant pain, this dog would be walking right along you with you happy and just all of a sudden out of nowhere reach over and bite you. Didn't always break the skin, but was going for it. If your reflex were fast enough, you got off less scathed. But and then would go right back to being this happy thing, like it couldn't figure out why you were running from it. So the owner of that dog did not have the money to put into brain scans, and so she did humanely euthanize the animal. It's a sad thing, but to say that all pit bulls are horrible, jaw-locking demon creatures is so unfair. It's like demonizing all the German shepherds of the 70s because of Cujo.
Yeah.
That was a well-trained and well-photographed animal. That's what that was. And, you know, I think that there are a lot of animals that get taken off of homeowners' things. German Shepherds, Doberman Pinschers, Rottweilers, Pit Bulls. And I mean, I don't think we even have the time to go into the fact that Pit Bull is just technically not a breed. And 90% of what is labeled as a Pit Bull at a shelter or a rescue isn't even, quote unquote, the new breed that they're trying to conceive. There is one that has been recognized by the AKC, and that is the American Pit Bull Terrier, and it looks nothing like 90% of the things that are being labeled that way. And any city or state that bans pit bull breeds or bully breeds, their description on what an ACO is to look for in an animal is all descriptive of the head mostly, and then a brief description of the body. And so these animals in San Francisco and Denver, to name 2 off the top of my head, are being classified by somebody's version of what a pit bull looked like. And these standards were written before AKC ever recognized the American Pit Bull Terrier.
I'm learning so much. It's one of the reasons I enjoy doing these interviews is I get to learn and I get to share knowledge with the people out there listening. There's been a problem with me of this killer breeds thing, and my nephew, and he's back in Ohio, but I last time I was back there, I saw him. I walked in the house, and he's like, "Be careful, my pitty's in here." And I'm like, "Okay." And I walk up, and she's just all kinds of love. And he looks
Yeah.
at me and he goes, "How you do that?" I'm like, "I like animals. They apparently like me."
Yeah.
But yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, on
So
my lap, there was this huge ass pit bull on my lap. It wanted to be a lap dog.
yes, yes, and that's my friend's two dogs. They fight over getting on my lap. And they're 80 pounds apiece, and even though I'm a bigger woman, it's still a lot of animal if only one of them's on my lap.
Yeah.
And they think they're chihuahuas, they really do.
And
And yet
chihuahuas think they're pit bulls.
yeah, and my 7-pound actually runs them in circles. So yeah. My I, I think that if you are the type of person that is open and patient and kind and loving and all those positive things that people can be, and you let go of the fact that an animal is out to eat you, you're going to find so much love in the dog world in so many different breeds. You know, the biggest thing people have to remember about pit bulls is that they're terriers, and terriers are the most stubborn dog on the planet. They know how to manipulate their situation to their advantage at every opportunity. And they will take full advantage of the slightest little slip that you make, the slightest little not follow through that you don't do. Those little things, they go, she wasn't paying attention. And I wonder, let me try this again. Oh, she didn't reinforce that again. So I don't really have to follow that rule anymore. And it doesn't take much for them to decide that they are now in charge of their sofa and you are not. So I think the biggest thing is that they're big size, they have a big bark, and they're manipulative as hell. And you put that together with no guidance and no direction and no structure and routine and follow through. And I can see how it could be a poltergeist. It's just, you have to understand that when you invite this creature to abide in your home, you now have a duty to explain the rules, the structure, the schedule, and who's calling the shots. So as the food provider and the mortgage payer, that should in fact be the human being. Not because we have thumbs, but because we're providing things. So dogs follow a hierarchy, and they need to have that in order to feel safe, sound, and secure. And that will raise their confidence level, and that will make training 100 times better. So when they know that you're in charge and this is their job and this is the other one's job and this is how we all fit into the family structure, then they know what their role is, their place is, and their job is. And life is so much happier and training goes so much better. And, I have 3 chihuahuas that bark when the neighbor dogs bark because they're responding, bark when a car pulls up because they're supposed to alert, but I can shut them down and they can come in the house. I can have people over, and whereas they get excited about them coming in the house, I can tell them that's enough, go lay down. And now I can have a conversation with my company. And people are blown away by the fact that these 3 chihuahuas just listened to what I said and went and laid on a bed. That's because I have fulfilled them as a dog, and now they give back the same 100% I give them. And that's where I take my training. I come from the dog's point of view, and I want to teach you what that dog needs to be that perfect dog that you want, and how you can do that, and what you need to give that dog so that that dog gives you back the same amount. Everybody wants that perfect dog walking on that J-loop loose leash, but they want to just sit there and command it and command it and command it. But I say manners are what a dog knows how to do when you're not talking to it, when you're not paying attention to it. the fact that the dog knows that this is their bed over here and that couch doesn't belong to them unless they're invited. So that makes household cleaning so much easier, but it also makes company over so much easier because the dogs don't belong on the couch unless they're invited. So they go over to their bed. So it's a full loop around of how it has to come together. So, and dogs learn from watching. I love, like, I have a rescue dog right now. I just brought her in Sunday, and she's the same size as my dogs. And there's a lot about her that doesn't have a problem, but she's never been walked on a leash. She doesn't know how to survive unless someone's holding her. So our job is to teach her how to be a dog on the ground with the dogs. And it's only been less than 24 hours that she's been in my home, and she's already learned how to go in and out of the house with the other dogs and come back in. And she has not had an accident in the house even yet. So
nice.
She was walked for potty, but it was not a pleasant experience. And the home she was in before that was an even worse experience from what I've been told. So, she's doing exceptionally well, but she has to learn how to be a dog.
Yeah.
She hasn't even eaten yet. She won't eat yet in my house. So
that'll come when necessary, at least.
Yeah, her confidence level is not there yet, even though she appears to the naked eye to be getting along with my dogs just fine. My dogs are not paying her any mind at all. They interact with her and do the doggy sniff thing, but then they go lay down and she goes into her kennel, door wide open, and she has not even thought about venturing out to their dog bed yet. So, that's going to take time. And a dog who is not sure of her situation is not going to eat. And for me to try and force her to eat is futile. So she'll get there. But the dogs are better teachers of dogs. And if we try to see how dogs are learning from other dogs, and we're quiet and use hand signals and we let that dog think, that's how we're going to get it. I tell people all the time, because I deal with a lot of people call me and go, the dog's aggressive. And then they explain it to me and I go, no, the dog's full of anxiety. Bring the dog in. And even if we do a quick assessment or I go to the house for a consultation, it ends up that once I cause the dog to think, I put a hand signal up with a treat in my hand, and the dog watches and watches. And every interaction they've had with the human up to that point, because 90%, 99% of us can teach a dog to sit, to get a treat from the cabinet. So, if I have a treat in my hand and their interaction with every human and a treat has been put your butt on the ground, now I've implemented a hand signal and I've given it to them, but I haven't said anything. And then I do it 4 or 5 more times. And that 5th time, there's no treat in my hand, but I still put the hand signal up. And as soon as I do it, I reach in the bag and pull a treat out. Then they go, so the hand signal, and then I can do it 4 or 5 more times without the treat and reach in the bag. Now the dog's not doing it for the treat. They're doing it for the hand signal. But when we turn on that thinking brain, then that dog can assess its environment instead of just overreacting to it, which looks like an aggressive behavior and is actually not.
Wow, I'm learning so much. This is more than I've talked to anyone thus far doing this project. I've learned so much today.
You made the mistake of putting me on mic and asking me questions about dogs. Sorry, because I can talk all day.
There's no mistake here. There's no mistake here. I knew this would be a wonderful interview. Let's talk about something that is not altogether pleasant.
Okay.
There comes times in the lives of our pets where they're sick or injured or old or infirm to the point that they're just miserable, and we have to relieve them of this pain. It's just our duty. So where in the immediate area can I go to have my pet euthanized? Where, and this is the important part to me, and I'm sure many others, where I can be there holding them or with my hands on them as they pass over the rainbow bridge.
So, any vet that I know in this area, uh, I am on record at North Valley. I have taken rescue dogs and friends' dogs for final departure. And at Advanced Animal, and I know the people and friends who have taken their animals for the final leg of their life to Spirit Mountain. Um, all of them allow you to be in the room. They do preparatory work. Obviously, they'll do an exam. They'll talk to you for a minute, and then, you need to have a conversation as your animal gets a slightly older with your vet and the tech staff there, so that you can express what your wishes are for when that day comes, so that they can make a note on your account. Especially if you know your animal is just been diagnosed, that's a great time to have a conversation that says, I need to be here and I need to know the process that you do specifically for end of time. And so that you can be aware of the procedure that's going to happen and the steps that they're going to take, because oftentimes there is a preparatory medication that is given, and then there is a secondary one, which is the actual end of it. However, I have been with friends at times when that first dose is either a little heavy or the animal is sicker than we thought, and it has a larger effect than it is intended to have.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why plan on spending all of your time with the animal before anything is given, because we can go by measurements and procedures, but there's sometimes with certain illnesses, we don't know how sick they are internally. And so a slight medication that's per calculation might overwhelm that animal more so than is expected. So
Mm-hmm.
they often will implant an IV tube. That's just to make it easier to give the final medications and stuff, because sometimes finding a vein in older dogs is difficult. So oftentimes they may go in the back to get that implanted, and then they come back to the room. Low Cost, which is now the Humane Society of Mojave County Veterinary Clinic, is the previously known as Low Cost Spay and Neuter. They're very good at being there and explaining what's going to happen, and very open to questions. I deal with them probably more than any other vet right now, just because of rescue and my own dogs and issues that I've had in the last several years. So, and I think I've laid 4 to rest with Low Cost in the last 12 years that I've been with them. So it's a further distance to go, but if it's not an emergency, it's someplace to go. You need to check with every vet, because they change their policies, procedures, new clientele, all that stuff faster than I can keep up with any of them. So I hear things from clients. It's not always accurate information. It may be skewed by whatever experience they had. So really, whatever vet you go to, you need to ask questions, make your concerns known. Don't feel like because they're the vet that they know everything about your animal. You need to also communicate as much as possible about your lifestyle, about your animal, and all those kinds of things. So, I mean, the more information you can give a vet, the better they can do their job. And we are all human. We are all fallible. And to say that a vet didn't get something right, so they're an evil, awful person and nobody should see them, it's not the way to go either, because we are all fallible. We just go on whatever training we have. And when you're working with a creature who can't speak back to you, It's even more difficult. So I think we need to give our vets a real hard pass on some of things where they might get it wrong or they could be having a bad day. And I know that when vets have to put down more than one animal in the morning, by afternoon, they are completely distraught. I have walked into clinics where I was literally the last dog to be euthanized that day, and the candle was already burning on the counter, which is a signal that there's been at least an animal euthanized that day in that clinic. So if you see a candle burning or an electric candle burning, it is usually there'll be a sign nearby, and it signifies that there's been at least an animal put to sleep that day. And so give the staff just a little extra leeway.
Sure. They
devastate them as much. So
right, they feel it because nobody goes into veterinary medicine to become rich like people become human doctors. They go into it for the love of the animals.
Yes. I mean, we all have to cover overhead. We all have to, put gas in our tanks and things like that. So is there an income? Sure there is. Are there some making more than others? Sure there are. But to get mad at a vet because they're making $1 or $7 or $1,000, it just means you didn't go into that field. Like, don't get upset with them. They're practicing, and I just read an article 2 days ago. There is a shortage of vets in this state of Arizona. And I will tell you, if you do not appreciate the vet you have, you could very quickly be without one. And how sad would that be? So if you get an appointment with a vet in the next short period of time, I suggest you appreciate it for everything that it's worth, because we have been lucky to at least keep a vet on at every vet hospital that's in this area so far. We don't have a vet office closing down because they can't get a vet. So appreciate that and value that and understand that they are humans just like we are.
Well, and you brought up something that I hadn't thought about talking about. So let's talk about spay and neuter.
Oh, yes. I stand on a soapbox, sir. Let me preach.
Please
my
do. Preach it.
Yeah. I can tell you that I was a breeder. I bred dachshunds. And my mom tried to breed our Great Dane. And so it wasn't something that seemed like you shouldn't do. But I will tell you, it only takes a month in rescue, even less in this area. Go to a rescue and volunteer for 2 weeks and tell me if you don't come out thinking everybody should spay and neuter that animal. Because the calls for unwanted animals are a busier phone than the calls for adoption. So this area is inundated with it. There are people in this area who are very blatant about making money off the backs of their mixed mutt animals. And they don't seem to care. I hear people say things to me like, well, I love him so much. If I breed him, then I can get another one from him. Well, back to that genetic thing I was talking about. If you take your favorite puppy and you breed it to another one and you take something from that litter, you only have 50% of the dog you have. And 50% of you don't know what to make what. Not going to be the same. I did breed my my first male boxer, and here's where I stand on my soapbox, because we didn't know anything was wrong with him, and I kind of thought maybe after breeding my dachshunds that I probably wouldn't get any more females. I'll just get the males and I'll just do the stud service like a lot of people do. And I can tell you, I thought I did my research in the lady that had the female. And it turns out she lied to me about a whole lot of things. Go figure. And One of the things was that she did not have a health checkup or an ultrasound done on her female's uterus. And after she gave birth to 8 puppies, she had 7 cysts in her uterus and continued bleeding even after she should have stopped. And by week 3, when I was there and I noticed the dog was dropping blood, I said, "Is she still bleeding?" And she said, "Yeah, we don't know why she won't stop." I said, "That's because there's something wrong. Get her scanned. Didn't you get an ultrasound done?" And she said, "No, I know you said we would, but we didn't have time." Excuse me. I didn't ask for the paperwork, and that was my fault. And then right after the puppy, I got a puppy because I had pick of the litter. And my puppy was 4 months old when my male had 3 grand mal seizures in my living room in the span of 30 minutes.
Oh.
And when I rushed him to the vet, wherein which he had 2 more seizures on the way to the vet, was still in one when I got to the vet, they gave him some stuff. I don't know all the details. And when they ran blood work, we found out what looked like a very healthy male turned out, and this is not run on a normal blood panel because I had done that. I had gotten all of his blood panels done. He had hypothyroid and anemia.
Oh.
And because of that, I then went to the lady who knew all the people who had bought her puppies, and I demanded that we pay for the spay and neuter of every animal that was in that litter. And that is only one side of my soapbox. The other side I stand on is I rescued a 7-year-old boxer through a third party from a homeless man here locally. And when I got her, we thought she was an older, overweight dog. And I said, she'll probably lose some weight and we'll get some more vitality out of her. And she was just a gentle giant and a beautiful soul and blended with my herd quite nicely. And, but my male was intact at that time, and we hadn't had any issues yet. The female pup I had was only 2 months old at the time, and he wanted to breed with her, but we couldn't figure out because she didn't look like she was in heat. But I just got her, so I didn't know any heat cycle. I didn't even know if she was spayed or neutered because it was one of those situations where I had a chance to get her, and we just got her and went. And so then she came back into the house and she sat down and she dropped this black spot on the floor where she had been sitting. So I wiped it up and he was acting weird. And so I thought, you know what? I told my husband, I'm just going to make a vet appointment because we don't know anything about her. I'll get a blood panel. I'll just get this stuff looked at and see what's going on. I had never seen anything like this. When she was looked over and the final diagnosis came back, she had pyometria, which is a life-threatening uterine infection. And by the time you know it, they are already on death's door.
Oh.
And they said she needs to go into surgery today. And I said, it's 4:00. What do you mean today? And they said, we're going to stay and do after-hour surgery. And I said, and how much is that? And they said, $2,500 to $3,000. And I said, and how much is it if I come back at 8:00 in the morning? And they said, $1,200. I said, I'll see you at 8 a.m. because I didn't have $3,000.
No, I got that.
I could come up with $1,200. So I came back. She had the surgery. She lost, and I'm not kidding, 4 pounds from having that surgery. 4 pounds. That's how much fluid was in her uterus. And if you understand anything about canine female anatomy, their uterus is like a horn. It is both sides of the dog. And it kind of looks like a link sausage when the puppies are in there. And so they're each encapsulated. And when a female comes into heat, generally twice a year, their cervix opens to allow for a breeding. Now, during that month, 2 weeks to a month where that cervix is open, there, if any dirt, bacteria, anything like that gets in, works its way past the cervix, and that cervix closes. Now, this is very layman's terms. A vet could explain this to you in much more clinical terms. Basically, you now have a dark, warm, moist environment to cook bacteria.
Oh, yes.
And every time that cervix opens and closes twice a year. Now, mind you, she was 7 when I got her. So at least 13 or 14 times that cervix had opened. And so she had that much pyometria in her that we were lucky that we caught it, because most times you don't catch it. The reason the surgery is so expensive is that they have to do a larger incision than a spay. And they have to do this without nicking that uterus, because if that infection and that bacteria gets into the body cavity, there is no saving that dog.
Yeah, you got sepsis and death.
Yes. So they very much do a larger incision, and they're extremely careful about how they do it. And there's a lot of time and effort that goes into saving that animal. And then the incision is usually stapled shut, because, and then they have to come back for removal or suture it at bare minimum. So it is definitely something. And this dog felt so much better after she got out that we actually had to tranquilize her every 12 hours for 5 days because she felt so much better. She wouldn't stay down. But she probably had been very, very sick for a very, very long time. And if she had stayed where she was, she would have died very shortly.
And miserably. It would have been a terrible, miserable way to go.
She was already in misery, and we didn't know it. So this is where I stand on my soapbox, because I've experienced all the enough of the extremes to make people think twice, so that you don't have to go through it. I mean, when you rescue a dog, obviously you didn't do it to that animal. So, but you still need to think about the fact that you're putting your animal through this. And there is at least one study that I have read that says that if an animal is spayed or neutered before their first heat cycle or before their testicular maturity, they reduce the reproductive cancers and health issues by 96%.
Oh my God.
It's astronomical. There's only been one study I can find that against early spay and neuter that was only run on one kennel of golden retrievers and only followed 2 litters to maturity. And because only a couple out of a couple litters came up with any kind of medical issues before they passed away, they say early spay and neuter is not necessary. So do your research. Low cost, at least Dr. Taylor that I know of that owns the clinic up there, she is specially trained in early spay and neuter. And because that's her major foundation of the clinic, I can only imagine that the other vets she brings in either don't do the early spay and neuters or are trained in that early spay and neuter to be able to do it. So it's something that she was the number one person that brought this to our town 12, 13 years ago, something of that nature.
And what's her clinic's name?
It's now called, slang is HSMC, which is Humane Society of Mojave County Veterinary Clinic. So cost spay and neuter has always had this nonprofit side of them, or this humane society, not nonprofit. Well, I guess it is, but they've always had this humane society side of them where they rescued animals and networked animals out to other specialty rescues and things like that. And now they've kind of combined them because they're now doing their full service veterinary, but they're also doing boarding. They're also doing some other things. So they've just brought the rescue into the clinic in their new facility. So, but she was the first one that brought early spay and neuter. This area, when I moved here 22 years ago, didn't even have a dog park, let alone a vet that thought it was wise to spay underneath a year. And in a year, you've had in a puppy year, you've had at least one heat cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we are now getting more densely populated. And the more densely populated an area gets, there's this phenomenon that I've been reading about that happens where an unspayed female that lives with or next door to an intact male could come into heat as many as 3 or 4 times a year. That's insane. I mean, again, that's doubling or at least adding one more cervix opening and closing. Yeah. And that's because females dictate the breeding. And if they know they have food and a safe place to whelp the litter and a male standing nearby, they want to get bred, and their body nature will cause the body to go into full breed mode. So,
wow.
Yeah. It's this new thing that I've been reading about because this area wasn't densely populated when I moved in here, and we were still overpopulated in pets. Yeah. So now we have even more people in the area, and still a large amount of backyard breeders. So
yeah, welcome to Mojave County, boys and girls.
Yes,
I've been here 26 years. And yes, it's the increase in people is it's remarkable. Let's move toward the end here with something that might be a little more cheerful. Okay. As I recall, occasionally, and there's probably a schedule involved, but occasionally you do a bit of charity. Yes. With your business.
Yes. I do run a pet food pantry. I started 8 years ago, and it is called Food, the number 4, Paws Pet Pantry. That's how it is on Facebook. The website is food, the number 4, paws.org. And all of our information is in both places, or links to the website from the Facebook. And we do have an Instagram account because someone thought we should, and I sort of partnered it with Facebook when they bought it. And sometimes things get over there, but really Facebook is my main thing to get the word out. We provide pet food to anybody in the community that is in need. Now we do have a couple of perpetual kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Supplement programs. One is for veterans. You only have to prove to me that you're a veteran. That's it. You show me a VA card or a DD214? Yeah, DD214, and a picture ID works just as well. A driver's license that has veteran stamped on it, any of those says that you get food every single month. It's not generally a full month unless we are overabundant like we are right now. And then they get 1 to 2 weeks, depending on what we get donated. Seniors over 60 get the same thing. They do have to prove that they're on Social Security and show a picture ID. That's pretty much it. And then we have a general program for anyone in the population making less than $50,000 a year. And we just upped that from 35 to 50. And you can get a full month supply 3 months out of the year. You pick the months you want to come. Nobody gets food without calling ahead and letting us know you're coming. And it starts over every January for those that can only come 3 times a year. And for the last 4 years at least, I have managed to pull off doing a Christmas bonus, where in which those that can only come 3 times a year now can come for Christmas as well. So it's not usually a full month supply, because that seems to be a harder time of the year to get donations for pets, unfortunately, because we're busy giving to kids and those kinds of things. So we do what we can. We just recently picked up our second gigantic load of food. The first time I drove to Utah about 4 or 5 years ago, and I picked up 4,600 pounds of dog food and a pallet of treats.
Wow.
And this time I picked up 7,000 pounds of dog food and a pallet of treats, and it filled the back of my car where my wheelchair normally is. It filled the back of the car up to the seat with canned food for dogs and cats.
Oh my.
So we were very blessed, and we are now right now for the next, until we get down to what I normally try to keep in stock, we are giving a full month supply out to everybody, seniors, vets, everybody. So we do want to do a community day where, even if you have never received food and you're afraid to sign up to get food for whatever reason, I want people to know that that is our joy, that those of us who work on that aspect, I have a very strong volunteer that is there continuously, but some other ones that come just during the pantry days, is that's our joy. We want to give to you. There is no judgment. Nobody has to have a service dog to get it. Nobody has to have an ESA dog to get it. We are not a reporting agency. I want to know every single animal that's in that house. There is no judgment. There is no reporting. I don't care who's listening to this. My job is not to put dogs on the street. My job is to feed them. I take that very seriously, and I don't care who's listening. So I want people to know that, because I was feeding a lady's household of 4 dogs, and I found out that she actually had 7. So she was stretching enough dog food for 4 dogs to feed 7.
Oh.
And so that breaks my heart. I've had lies the other way, which is why we have paperwork, and we have to prove we have the animals now, because somebody did screw us over the first year.
Yeah,
and
you're always gonna have one.
Yeah. So I hate rules. So I will tell you, I am about less. I don't want any of that. You need food, I want to give it to you. I want you to be honest with me, and I'm just going to help you out. It doesn't need to be all these antics. But there's always going to be a bad apple somewhere. So unfortunately, you do have to prove to me that you have the pets. We ask for a picture of the pets with you in the picture if possible, so that we know that they are yours. If you have vet paperwork, we'll take that instead. But I found that that's really difficult. There are some people who either are new to the area, lose them in a move, for whatever reason, can't get them. So we've gone to the pictures, and it seems to be working just fine.
Cool. This sounds wonderful. Now I'm going to give you an opportunity, and you want to give a shout out to the people that are getting the food to you that you were getting to everyone else.
This last, the first one was Best Friends Animal Sanctuary, and that was by way of a contact through Saint. They got the notification, and they don't do food, so they said, hey, if you'll go get it, they said they'd give it to you. So I went and got it. This last one has kind of asked to not. I can say that I got it from the Humane Society of Mojave County, but they're getting some backlash Please don't write them and say, why didn't this organization get it or why didn't that one?
Yeah.
I'm not in charge of that. And they made the decisions that they made based on the 26 pallets of dog food that they had to get rid of in
Oh my
5
God.
days. They had 5 days to get rid of this food. And I rallied the troops. I do want to do a shout out to Graceland storage units and U-Hauls. They gave me a U-Haul for 100% free. 1%
Oh,
free. So if you need a U-Haul, please go and call Graceland on Facebook. There's the Facebook page called the Shed Guys. Please, they are great people. The first time I went to Utah, because I didn't give them a heads up why I was renting it, they could give me whatever discounts they could. They said if I ever needed it again, and when I called them and said I needed it again, they were like, we're on it. And so not only did they tell me this, but they followed through. 100% free. So I just definitely need to shout out to that. And then to the flag wavers who stopped what he was doing and went and got his truck and met me in Kingman to go get the last 2,000 pounds on a Friday when he could have been spending the day with his children, which he brought with him, but he could have been doing something a little more fun. So I got the children a little something because I like them anyway, but he brought his truck up to Kingman and all the way back to Bullhead and only would take $30 for gas. That's it.
Jeez.
And I had to beg him to take it. So I'm going to tell you.
He's good people.
He is good people. And, you know, for him to bring his big, huge truck that could carry 2,000 pounds and tell the guy, nah, just drop the whole thing in my truck. What? Okay, nuts. And my other volunteer, Bridget, who drove her truck up there and took about 1,000 or more pounds in her truck. Yeah. So it definitely, this is not a me, this is a we.
Yes.
I cannot do this without the community. I also have drop boxes at Spirit Mountain Animal Hospital. I have a drop box at TLC Doggy Daycare. I have, where else do I have? Two of my places have gone out of business. So trying to think. Those are the two easiest ones to get to currently that you can find at TLC's on the 99, and everybody knows where Spirit Mountain is. But yeah, so if I can't meet you somewhere, pick it up, you can't drop it off during, crazy scheduling, then those two places are open their normal hours and you can drop it off at your convenience. And then we get a call from them when their bins get full. So.
Sounds like a great network you set up there to help people that, we go through tough times, we still love our pets. And sometimes you gotta, so being able to know that you can get some extra food a few times a year to help, it stretches that budget out just a bit.
And I had one volunteer that's no longer with me say, you understand that some people are literally just not buying their dog food because they know you'll give it to them at Christmas and spending more money on unnecessary toys for their children. And I said, that's your understanding of the situation, not mine.
Right.
I don't care if you're buying extra toys for the kids and I can give you dog food. Everybody wins. Who cares?
Yes. Yeah. Sounds like a win-win to me. It does.
Yeah. Yep. So, that is my life. That is done on the 4th Saturday of every month. Everything's on the website, for sure, as to when we do it and how we do it and how to contact us. So,
give us those websites one more time.
So it's food, 4paws.org, or on Facebook, it is food, 4 paws pet pantry. And yeah, Facebook private message through our Facebook page is probably the fastest way to reach me. I have a separate cell phone that is, you can text or call or leave a message, and that is 928-310-PETS or 7387. So, and that number is on the website as well as the Facebook page. So, I mean, there's 3 different ways to get a hold of me. The absolute fastest, if there's an emergency situation, and if there's anybody out here that's listening that is a social worker or some kind of case manager for anybody that you see in need of pet food, that Facebook Messenger is going to be the fastest way in an emergency situation when you think dog food needs to be delivered within a week or less. So that's just what I'll tell you.
Okay. Well, we're going to wind up here a little bit, but give me your final thoughts on everything you're doing, and then we're going to close this up and call it an evening.
So I'm passionate about feeding animals, passionate about training dogs, and I will tell you that if you own a dog, stop and think about it from his point of view or her point of view, and then call me for the rest.
Okay. That's great.
That's right.
This
has been Mike. Right off the cuff.
This has been enjoyable. I can't tell you how much I've learned today. It's the thing that I did not know that will stick with me now forever is that dogs cool down through their paws. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people give people grief out here about putting socks on their feet, because the homeless will put socks on their dog's feet. But what we need to do is tell them that just put them on for short periods, carry them if you can, and then allow their feet to breathe and get wet, and then, move on. So
wonderful.
Education.
Thank you so very much.
Then chastising. So
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you much for a wonderful conversation. I will let you know when this hits the Facebook page and the radio stream.
Thank you.
All righty. Have a good night.
All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.